Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Um, I was thinking a lot about this last night after I got off my live. About what I went through as a child in my life. And I thought, in order for you guys to understand it better, you might need to see the person and you might need to see me as a child. This is not easy, so I ask you to be kind because it's not easy. And I went through a lot of emotions trying to find pictures of him so that you could see the person that I've been talking about. This is one part of my life that is not easy. And being called something that he was kills me inside. And the person that does it knows it kills me inside. When I talked to the detective about when they came to my home and they checked my computer and my phone, there's 150 pages. They did a thorough investigation on me, which was embarrassing, humiliating, and it sucked. To even be accused of something like this. It's still today accused of something like this. But it's okay. I'm learning to deal with it and go on and not worry about it. But I want to show you why I'm so passionate about helping children and not wanting this to happen to them. Just looking at the pictures of him just brought back so many bad memories and so much. But you guys know that predator out there, right? That you see him and you're like, ooh, that's a creepy guy. And you just know right off that that's a predator. That was my grandpa. So please be kind while I show you my life. Please do not record me and make fun of this. I'm asking you nicely. Let's begin. Meet Alvin O'Ennis. the man that controlled my life and hurt me in ways that no one would ever know. And as you see, he looks like a creepy pedophile. He looks exactly like what people say when they think of a pedophile. Thank you for being here, Tori. But it's time that people, they sometimes have to see in order to actually know. They have to see it. That's my grandma beside him. This is on my dad's side of my family. He was a millionaire, so my mom and dad, my mom fought every year to get me, but she couldn't get me. This is the man that did so much damage to my life. I'm trying. Like I said, this is gonna be hard. This is not gonna be easy for me. You're a typical pedophile. If you look at somebody and you think, are you a pedophile? He fits it all. And it's so humiliating and it's so embarrassing. To know that this man right here should have been my grandpa and loved me, not raped me for 10 years. He should have been my grandpa. He should have been my grandpa. I ask myself why all the time. Why? Why? When I was this age, why? What was so sexual about me? My mom made this outfit for me. What was so sexual about me? What can you see in a little girl like this? This is about my grandpa raping me for 10 years. Would you like to go back and make fun of that, the Church of Four, as well? Is that why you're here, so you can go back and make fun of it? So you can put it up on your platform and laugh about it? Like you did about my pictures? No, you made fun of me as a person. You made fun of me as a person. You made fun of my pictures. You said that I went to glamour shots. I've never been to glamour shots in my life. You made fun of me as a person, and you don't even know me. So on to the next. As I said, your typical fucking pedophile right there. That's my dad. That's my dad right there. And all his brothers and sisters. This was the year before I was born, in 1974. I don't have many pictures of him because I don't want pictures of him. I only have these pictures because my dad died, and these are the pictures my dad had. This is a creepy man that people would look at and say, today they would look at it if he was in a white van and say, oh my God, that's a pedophile. The glasses, the style, the everything. Fucking embarrassing. Anyway. This man hurt me more than anybody ever hurt me in my life. And as you can see by his face, he was mean. He was mean. He was a psychopath. He was a sociopath. He was a narcissist. And he was fucking mean. You do one thing wrong, you're getting whipped with a water hose. You're getting shocked, electrocuted with cattle prongs. You're getting punched in the face. You're getting pulled by your hair. You're getting kicked in the shins. You're being told to go get a switch so he can beat your ass all over the place. This man controlled everybody. Oh, even my father. My mom divorced my dad right here, up at the very corner. My dad, because of this man. Because he controlled my dad so bad. And my mom was so sick of it. My mom was so sick of that man. And how can you blame her? Do you see a smile on this man's face? In any of his pictures, he does not smile. He didn't have ugly teeth. He's just mean. He was never good to any of these children, my aunts and uncles, nor my dad. One of the meanest men I've ever met in my life. So smart. He got 20 years in prison, and I'm going to show you guys. He got 20 years in prison, but got out in 2 on a technicality because they did not give him the correct charges in 1994. So he spent his time in prison going through different scenarios of people being charged with the wrong thing. This is me, age 7. This is me, age 7 years old. Again, I'm child. There is nothing attractive about a child. This is 1 year after he had started messing with me. But as children, we can still put smiles on our faces. Because at this point, I didn't even know that it was wrong. I knew that I didn't like it and I wanted it to stop, but I didn't know that it was wrong. I had no idea. So now we're going to go to how he got out of prison. That's why I say that it is very important for when the police department does figure out that someone has done a crime to a child or anything else, they have to have all their I's dotted and all their T's crossed. Because otherwise, that person can get out of prison and not even have to register as a sex offender if they were not charged correctly. And that's facts. Ennis versus State, 1994, Missouri Court of Appeals decision. Hang on just a second. I'm going to try to read this. But the tears just keep flowing and I can't get them to stop. I can't get the tears to stop so I can see. Okay, this is why it's so important that when you are prosecuting someone for a crime, that you make sure all your I's are dotted and all your T's are crossed. Because that person can go and do exactly what my grandpa did right here and can get out of prison altogether. My grandfather was very, very smart. As I told you before, he was a master manipulator, but he was highly intelligent. How do you think that we sold milk to Kraft? Our milk filled up the whole back of their thing, of their trucks. And our tank inside of our barn was just as big as their truck. Every morning at 11 o'clock, they came and got the milk. Every day. But I'm going to try to do this. Let me get my eyes wiped here. People can get off of a crime that they totally committed, that they totally admitted to, if they did not get sentenced correctly. I am a victim of that. I just lit my cigarette wrong. You guys want to see how nervous I am? I just lit my cigarette on the wrong end. That's how fucked up I am right now about this. All right, let's go. This is why it's so important that if you do tell on someone for a sexual crime, you make sure that you tell everything. I was so scared. I didn't exactly want to send him to prison, but my mom was like, you have to send him to prison so that he doesn't do this to anyone else, because he did it to me, he did it to my sister, he did it to his own daughter, and he tried to do it to my friends. Missouri Court of Appeals, Southern District, Division 2, November 28, 1994. Alvin Ennis was sentenced to 2 concurrent 10-year terms after pleading guilty to 2 counts of sodomy. Thereafter, he filed a timely motion to set aside the judgment and sentence pursuant to the rule, which he alleged, among other things, that the trial court had violated Rule 24.02 by not determining that a factual basis existed for the guilty pleas. The motion was denied after Mobit, by appointed counsel, requested that the court take judicial notice of the files in this matter and rule Mobit's motion based upon the record. Alvin's sole point on this appeal is that the motion court clearly erred in finding that a factual basis existed for his guilty pleas. He argues that the only factual basis for the charges, which was identified by the trial court at the time of the guilty plea, was Alvin's admission that he had had sexual intercourse with his 2 granddaughters. He contends that such an admission was insufficient to support a conviction of sodomy, because there was no factual showing of the required element of deviant sexual intercourse. Meaning he did not stick it in my ass, but there's another way of sodomy, and that is oral sex, which he did make me do. Alvin was charged by amended information with having deviant sexual intercourse, which he did, with each of his 2 granddaughters, to whom he was not married and who were each less than 14 years old, in a document entitled Guilty Plea, signed by Alvin and received by the trial court at the time of the plea. Alvin said that he understood that he was charged with sodomy, for which the penalty was 5 to 15 years. That he had a preliminary hearing at which he was represented by an attorney. That he had consulted about the case with his attorney, who had explained the offense charged in the information and the punishment that can be assessed. That he was satisfied that his attorney had properly represented and advised him, and that he was pleading guilty of his own free will because he was guilty as charged in the information. Exhibit A also required Alvin to state what he did to cause the charge to be filed, to which he responded, "I had sexual intercourse with his 2 granddaughters." At the time of his guilty plea, Alvin waived formal arraignment and entered a plea of guilty. He told the court that there had been ample time for him to discuss the case with his attorney and that he was pleading guilty voluntarily because he was guilty. He also told the court that he understood each question contained in Exhibit A and that his answers to those questions were true and correct. He answered, "Yes, sir." When the trial court asked him, "Did you, as charged, have sexual intercourse with ... a person less than 14 years of age and to whom you were not married?" The record before us does not indicate that any other information was established at the plea hearing concerning the factual basis of the 2 charges. Now let me stop right there. That's how he got out of it. Because when they said, "Did you, as charged, have sexual intercourse with," they didn't say Betty Lorraine Ennis and my sister. They just said with a person less than 14 years of age. That was the technicality. They did not actually say in court our names. Believe it or not. They did not say it in court. They just asked him if he had sex with two minors, but not who it was with. And that was the technicality. That was the technicality that he had grounds on. Let me wipe my eyes so I can finish. In reviewing the court's actions concerning a motion under the rule, the appellate court is limited to a determination of whether the findings and conclusions of the trial court were clearly anonymous. Clearly enormous is what that says. The court's findings, conclusions, and order are clearly enormous only if a review of the entire record leaves the appellate court with a definite and firm impression that a mistake was made. This is why it's so important not to make a mistake when you are asking these predators questions in the courtroom and everything. It is so important. Don't make that damn mistake. Because this is what happens. Rule 24.02 provides, the court shall not enter a judgment upon a plea of guilty unless it determines that there is a 7-7 factual basis for the plea. If the facts do not establish an offense, the court must reject the guilty plea. Hang on. This is why it's a landmark case. This is why you can find this case just right on Google, because this is a landmark case. This is to show what not to do. How to not be stupid when you're trying and convicting a pedophile. You have to say our names in the courtroom. Our names was said over and over, except this particular time in the courtroom. And from that one little particular time in the courtroom, he was able to get it as a technicality and violation. Yes, this is the master manipulator that we're all talking about right now. You show me somebody else who gets a 20-year sentence and gets out in 2. Alvin relies heavily on Hodgkin versus State. So he goes and he finds this person right here. In that case, the person pleaded guilty to attempted sodomy, but sought to have the conviction set aside because the plea court allegedly failed to establish a factual basis for the crimes charged at the plea hearing. Before the plea was taken, the court read the charges in substantially the same language as contained in the information and asked the person if he did the things the charges said he did, to which it received an affirmative response. The person also acknowledged that he was satisfied with his attorney's services. There was no recitation, however, of the evidence that would be available to prove the charges. In holding that the guilty plea must be set aside, the appellate court said. Count V alleged the crime of attempted sodomy. All that was before the court was its reading of the charge. Defendant attempted to have deviant sexual intercourse with DG, to whom he was not married, without consent and by use of forcible compulsion. The requirements of the rule were not met in the absence of any description of the nature of the defendant's acts which would constitute commission of attempted sodomy. On a blank record, the term deviant sexual intercourse is unknown. The conviction based on the guilty plea on Court B must be set aside for failure to comply with the rule. Jones versus State, another case he found. The plea court was not authorized to accept a guilty plea on this count. Hence, the conviction based on the plea violates the law expressed in Rule 24.035 and must be set aside. In Jones versus State, the person pleaded guilty to second-degree robbery. The appellate court held that rule had been violated because the record of guilty plea proceeding was devoid of any recitation of facts establishing conduct which would constitute the offense charged. The court noted that reading of the amended information had been waived and then said, and while the court did determine that Jones knew that the charges were second-degree robbery, there was absolutely no mention of what allegedly occurred. The record does not establish Jones as a causant in the facts that which the state would rely upon at a trial in order to establish Jones' guilt. The court's sole reference to the incident in question was Judge Robert L. Campbell's statement that Jones, co-defendant, had previously pled guilty and that the co-defendant and not Jones had a gun. These facts established no factual basis for the court to accept the guilty plea. A court should reject a guilty plea if the facts elicited at the guilty plea proceeded did not establish the commission of a crime. Thus, the court is constrained to hold that the motion court clearly erred in finding that the record of the guilty plea proceeding established a sufficient factual basis for Jones' plea of guilty. So he's taken these two cases, the Hodgkin cases, McDonald cases, Sells versus State cases, all of these cases, he became, like I said, an attorney while he was in there. And he took all of this. And then he filed an appeal. And because they did not say our name and they charged the defendant with deviant sexual intercourse with each of his two granddaughters to whom he was not married and each of who was under the age of 14 years old. as noted in the Hoskin versus State requirement, are not met in the absence of a description of the nature of defendant's act, which would constitute sodomy, because the term deviant sexual intercourse is unknown. The only recital or showing of facts supporting the charges in the instant case consisted of the trial's court question to him at the time of the plea about whether he, as charged, had sexual intercourse with each of the girls who were under 14 and to whom he was not married. And Alvin's statement in Exhibit A that he had sexual intercourse with the two girls. And it goes on and on and on how he got out. So it's very, very, very important that they dot all their I's and cross all their T's. Because these motherfuckers right here can get out. They can get out so that they can prey on other children and continue on their deviant sexual behavior. And don't think that he didn't. Just nothing was ever said. So, this is fucking hard for me. And I know you guys are probably going to record this, laugh about this, think this is the funniest thing in the world. But it's not funny. And this was my life. And I lived it. And he didn't even serve the consequences for what he did to me. Because he was fucking smarter than the people who have convicted him. So we're going to go back and show you the predator. The one that everybody would be like, no, get away from him. You can tell he's a predator. And then I'm going to leave for a while because I don't want to talk anymore. But I just wanted to show you guys. I wanted to show you guys that this man right here. Look at his cockeyed smile. Look at that. Look at his little smirk on his face. Thought that he was smarter than everybody in the fucking world. Including the cops. Including the prosecuting attorney. And you know what? He was smarter. At the end, he won. Didn't he? At the end, he got out. And he lived the rest of his life for another 15 years. Until he died of brain cancer. So who was the smart one at the end? Who really won at the end? He did. He did. And he knew exactly what he was doing to me the whole entire time. This man did. Right here. So imagine sending someone to prison who raped you for 10 years and then getting a phone call from the prosecuting attorney saying, we're sorry, Betty, but we had to let him out. On a technicality. We're sorry, but we had to let him out. So my grandpa was the creepiest, most controlling pedophile, abuser, master manipulator, that literally ruined my life. It carried on through my relationships, through my life. I started getting with abusive men, thinking that that's the way that men love you. That's not the way that men love you. You should never be with anyone that's controlling or hurting you in any way, shape, or form, ladies or gentlemen, ever. And I'm going to leave with this. If you see something, say something. And if you press charges against someone, make sure they ask those tough ass questions and make sure they put those children's names in there. Because as you've seen, there was 2 other people, one from a robbery and one from doing sexual abuse to somebody he hurt. It doesn't even matter if you plead guilty like he did. It doesn't even matter if you write a confession like he did. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I love each and every one of you. Please be kind. That's all I'm asking you, is to be kind. Make tonight magical. Make today magical. Make tomorrow magical. Don't hurt anybody. You don't know what they lived through. You don't know who they are. Don't hurt anybody. Show as much love and kindness as you can. And try to help these babies from men like this. It's the most embarrassing thing, knowing this was my grandfather and he could have been a good man. I could have been sitting here saying how smart he was and how extremely, intelligent he was about, the farming industry and all of these things. But instead, I have to sit here and say he's a fucking pedophile. And a pedophile that got out of prison after 2 years, that got off the 20-year sentence and didn't even have to register as a sex offender. Way to go, Mr. Prosecuting Attorneys. Way to go. Way to go that a man can outsmart your ass with an 8th grade graduation. 8th grade education can outsmart fucking attorneys. Way to go. So I'm going to leave for now. You guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for coming. God bless you.